Now, in the beginning of this, x is an element of this. Questions? All right. All right, solving by factoring. We've got about 15 minutes, right? We go till 10:45. I just want y'all to know that if you need to talk to me after class, if you've got something you need to discuss with me, I have no problem talking to you. But I have an 11 o'clock class that starts, that's in Juniper Hall on the 3rd floor. So I have to take the camera, take it down, get out of the room, go all the way to that room, set up my camera, and do all of that before 11. So I have 15 minutes to get out of here and across campus. So if you ever need to talk to me after class, just be willing to like follow me and walk with me if it's something urgent. If not, don't feel like, I just don't want you to feel like I'm blowing you off. I have to get somewhere. Now, my office hours will start later on today if you need to meet me in my office. All right, so just check the syllabus again for the times. All right, your favorite F word, factoring. So you all got through 1324. And I know in my 1324 I told them, you have to be able to factor. But even with that said, some students are still weak with the factoring. I hope that this doesn't become your Achilles heel. Everybody in here is going to have a different way of factoring in terms of what they've learned. Some people are going to do like a guess and check method where they just kind of write, notice that this is a trinomial. They write 2 sets of parentheses and then start kind of playing with numbers. How many of you do it that way? Just a few of you? That's probably the most efficient way to do it. It's the way that you should do it. If you've done so many of these, it's just comfortable to you to do it that way. Okay? Now, if you don't do it that way, then you need to have a process. So, since you're in 1325 and the expectation is that you can do this already, I'd like for someone to tell me how they would do this. Don't be afraid.
Start out with 2 sets of parentheses.
Okay, so you're going to start with 2 sets. Let me go to my black marker because this one is hard to erase. Okay, so you want me to start with 2 sets of parentheses? You're factoring the left side. By the way, what is the first step to factoring anything?
It equals 0.
I mean, like if I give you just any arbitrary thing on the board and I say factor it, what's the first step? Greatest common factor. You're trying to find something that would be common to all of the terms. Like if they all had a factor of 2, or if they all had an x, you would pull that out, wouldn't you?
Yeah, like
yes. Like what?
Like B.
Okay, like B has what? 4 is a factor. I could pull that factor out, right? Okay, that's the first step. So I want us to recognize on this problem, we would not have a greatest common factor, so we're skipping that step. But we did think about it. Now, because it's 3 terms, 1, 2, 3, this looks like the appropriate method. So now, continue.
And then I'd go ahead and place an x on the left side of either parentheses.
Okay, and then?
Then from there you have to find a multiple of 45. That will equal the sum of 4.
Okay, so you need basically 2 numbers that multiply to be negative 45, but when you sum them up or add them up, you get negative 4. And are you just going to do that mentally? Or kind of scratch paper here?
Yeah, you could list all the multiples of 45.
Okay. You could list them all out? Yeah? 45 and 1, something like that. But you need one of them to be negative, don't you?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter which one I make negative because there's no way I'm going to get that to add up to be negative 4. So I can scrap that. Yes?
I was just going to say that you could, if you think about it, there's 5 and 9. 9 minus 5.
Okay. So I think, yeah, we would get to 9 and 5 eventually here, right? Yeah. 9 times 5 gives you 45. And we need it to be negative, and we need them to add up to be negative 4. So how about we make the 9 negative, right? And that way we get Negative 45 when you multiply these, and negative 4 when you add them. So then I just put, what, minus 9 plus 5? And I'm done. Okay. That's kind of what I expect everyone here can do, is have a way of getting to that. Now, once I'm here, what do I do?
You solve for x equals, or x minus 9 will equal to 0.
Okay, so you're going to set this to 0
Equations.
and this to 0. So that's the whole idea behind factoring, is once you factor, if it's equal to 0, has to be equal to 0, then you can set each of the factors to 0. So x minus 9, set it equal to 0. X plus 5, set it equal to 0. You get x is 9 and x is negative 5. So these are just linear equations. Just add 9, subtract 5 there, and you've got your two solutions. Okay? On this one, there's a greatest common factor. They both have something in, or all three terms have something in common. So I can pull the 4 out first. And why is pulling the 4 out a good idea?
Makes the rest easier.
Yeah, it's going to make your numbers smaller in here, right? So when you're trying to figure out what numbers to use to break this trinomial up like we did over there, the numbers are a lot easier to work with. So everyone comfortable with me pulling a 4 out of this? Okay. Now what? Try and break this down? So I'm going to leave the 4 out here for now. We're going to discuss that 4 in just a second. Okay, so you want me to put x here again, and then come up with two numbers that multiply to be negative 15, add up to be 2.
5 and negative 3.
5 and negative 3. Positive 5, negative 3. That will work. So you could check it yourself. You could FOIL this out. See if you can come up with this as a result. Now we set everything equal to 0, right? All the factors to 0. So I will set x plus 5 equal to 0. I will set x minus 3 equal to 0. But what about that 4 out there? This is something that trips people up sometimes. What to do with the 4? Is
X
it,
cannot equal 4? Or
combine the 4 and the x, it's 4x, right?
you mean like put this back through here? You could do that, but let me ask you this. When we did the factoring, we had multiplication between these two, right? And so you set each one of those equal to 0, didn't you? Now we have multiplication here also. So we should also set this equal to 0, which means 4 should be equal to 0, which makes no sense at all, right? So this can be completely ignored. It has no impact on your solutions at all. In fact, if you like this better, up at this line, you could have divided this whole side by 4 and this whole side by 4. The 4s would have canceled. 0 divided by 4 is what? Still 0. So you would have had just these two things equal 0 still, right? And you would have just got these two answers. So the 4, because there's no x, it's just the number 4. Because of that, it's gone. It's not part of your answers. With me? Now, what if it had been 4x? 4x. Then 4x, that can equal 0 if x is 0. So you would have had a solution here. Let me see what the next ones are here. I think we're quadratic formula. Okay, so I'm going to wait on the quadratic formula. I'm going to ask you how you would deal with this. All right, I'm giving you a different problem. 3x squared minus 22x plus 7 equals 0. Pardon? Okay, so I heard AC method. That's good. So let's start with the people who feel real comfortable with this, who would just go right to parentheses right now. Anyone there at that point? Okay, so let's just follow, see if you can get it. All right, so you would just do parentheses right away here?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what would you do?
I put one of them 3x and one of them x.
Okay, so now you can't do XX because this is a 3. So you have to do one of them as a 3x and the other one's x.
Yeah.
And then
And then you could put
it's a little harder, right? I mean, but it can be done, but it's a little harder here.
7 is going to be on the left side or the right side.
7 here and 1, I heard 1 here. Is that 1 here and 7 here?
They're both going to be negative.
Both negative. Let's see. Does this work?
yeah, they're both gonna be negative.
3x squared. Yes? Minus 21x. Minus 1x, which would be minus 22x, plus 7. That's this. Now, that's if you're there. I mean, I would want everyone to be there, but realistically, not everybody is there. So, if you can't do that, what's the approach? What's that? Quadratic formula. There you go. You can go with that, right? That's the never fails method. So, quadratic formula would be an option at this point, which we're not going to have time for. Another method we could use is the like a more formal AC method. More formal AC method would be, how many of you have seen this? You take these two numbers and you multiply them. You get 21. And then maybe you've seen this. You take the number here, negative 22, and you come up with two numbers that multiply to be this and add up to be this. So you could use like negative 21 and negative 1. Does this look familiar to you at all? I mean, that's what I said. Everybody has got different ways of doing this. So what I would recommend, because we're going to be out of time here, is for you to take this problem and try and work this problem yourself. Make sure you know how to get this. And what I mean is by factoring. Don't use a quadratic formula. Try and factor this. See what your comfort level is with it. Now, I have a handout for you. There should be enough to pass these back. These should be completed. I'm not going to collect these, but complete it and bring it with you next time. I hope I have enough copies. If you have trouble with that, remember the solutions are on our website, the homework solution videos. Have me working out those problems, all right? So that's the expectation for next class. Well, we don't meet again until Tuesday, right? So your homework is to get onto our Canvas website and complete that quiz. Don't forget about that. That's just going to sign off on the syllabus. And then for you to complete that assignment there and bring it with you next time. And that's it. Everyone signed in? Have a good day. The what? The packet? If I have an extra one. Are there any extra packets? There's one there. And I have one more.
I need
Oh.
another handout.
You need a handout? Uh-oh. Hold on.
Extra handouts in there.
There's extra handouts. Great. There you go. You need one also?
Thank you.
Okay. Just enough copies.
Sorry about being late. I went to the wrong
It's okay. I understand.